I'm now going to show you how we put the lime sulfur on the driftwood. This is just going to be a very short video because this is just the actual technique of applying the lime sulfur and cleaning the trunks. Most of the driftwood on bonsai are usually done on junipers, yews, most of the trees that don't exude a sap. You don't often find a lot of white driftwood on pines because when pines are stripped of their bark, they give out a resin which makes it a bit difficult to apply the lime sulfur. So we've got a couple of very nice junipers here. I'll just walk through it. This particular tree belongs to a customer. It's been here for quite a few months. In fact, it's been here for almost 9 months. Because of the lockdown, we couldn't return it to the customer. And it comes here once every 5 years or so for servicing. Servicing means that we take all the wires off, maybe rewire the trees. We spent about maybe 1 week taking off every single piece of wire from the twigs and branches. And we've got to now clean the wood and then apply the lime sulfur. I'm just going to show you some other trees that we have here. We have quite a few trees. This is one of my own trees. This is a yew. This has been carved, so this has got to be cleaned as well. This one I didn't show in the video, but I did some carving myself. This is a yew that we grow in our field, and it's in the process of being made. I'm not in a rush to lime sulfur that because I'm in the process of carving that. There are some other trees here that have been tidied up, and my colleague here, Steve, has been tidying it. So he's cleaned the bark. I will show you how the bark is cleaned. And this tree is going to be put in one of these mica pots so you can see the extensive driftwood. We've taken the wires off because they were biting quite heavily into the branches, but we're going to rewire it. So this is going to possibly go in one of these jump pots. This is a very famous juniper of mine. This has been cleaned, the bark has been cleaned, and we've put very subtle lime sulfur so that it's not too bright and white. Now I would like to show you this tree, which is a really major tree. This again is a customer's tree, and look at the size of this. I must have imported this tree possibly 2005 or 6, maybe even earlier, but around that time. So it's been in this country about 15 years, and it was sold to this very good customer of mine about possibly 10 years ago. And again, they come here every now and then for servicing, what I call servicing. So it's got extensive driftwood. I would say this is probably carved, but it's a really stunning juniper. Look at the size of it. Look at the size of this tree. And look at this beautiful red bark of the juniper. This has been cleaned, and you may have seen on some of my earlier videos where I show you how to clean the bark. We stripped the old bark off because junipers and yews, all the cupressus family, they shed the bark as the tree grows and expands. So this is the bark that has come off, and then once it's come off, we then use a brush to get it nice and bright and red. We've got to clean some more, and I may possibly do just a little bit of wiring to support it. So this tree is in very good health, and look at it. I estimate this tree to be well over 100 years old. I don't think it is quite 200, but possibly between 100 and 130 or 40. But it's some juniper, some size of juniper, almost possibly made from a garden tree. But this one is spectacular. I remember seeing this in Japan. I will try and find a photograph of me with this tree when I saw it in a Japanese nursery. But this is also a very spectacular tree with this beautiful driftwood. And needless to say, this is a very expensive tree. Not everyone can afford trees like this. I can't even tell you the price because this is a very private thing between the customer and me. But believe you me, it is an expensive tree. So I'm going to do a bit of videoing as Steve cleans the bark, and we'll show you how it is done. We begin by wetting the surface. So we use this little spray and we wet it with this spray of water, and using the nylon brush we clean the bark off. There's a lot of algae and dust and grime on the bark, so we do that first. Have you removed any of the flaky bark yet? No.
No, there wasn't a lot on here.
Okay, but we may do just a bit. Okay, so I wouldn't try and use a pressure washer, although there is a case for using a pressure washer, I suppose. But I think this is more gentle. Beautiful live vein on this tree. This tree came from western Saitama, from the Tsuchiya Mountains. I will dig up the photograph because I distinctly remember seeing it, and I fell in love with this tree from the very first sight. Now Steve is using a little carving tool like a chisel, and he's just trying to scrape off the flaky bark. You could use a kitchen knife or a pen knife, whatever suits you. We've got to be careful not to take too much of the bark off, because you could kill the live cambium. You see the live vein over here. The red is the live, the white part is the dead wood. Okay, there's quite a lot to do. I'll leave Steve to do some more, and then when all that is exposed, I will film it again. And juniper wood is very, very hard. And of course the old lime sulfur, this becomes like mud or dust, and that has to be cleaned out too. So I'll leave Steve to do some more, and I will come back and film this again. It's still what you call virgin. That means we haven't done anything to it. You see the algae which has grown on the trunk, that has all got to be washed off, brushed off and cleaned. And this is what will take a few minutes to do. So here we are after another 15 or so minutes, and you can see how the bark is coming nice and red. And that's what we're doing. We're just brushing off the algae on the branches. You see they're all green, and we find that just spraying it with a little bit of water and then brushing it gets it clean. So we got to do the whole trunk like that. This is the other side. This has been done. This has been done. So it's literally like washing it, in fact. This is a spectacular tree. This sort of thing only the Japanese and the Taiwanese can make. So this is the first stage, washing the live veins and also cleaning the dead wood. And when that is thoroughly washed, we will then apply the lime sulfur. So this is the general principle. And if there are any loose bits of bark, we will take it off with the penknife. So this is that large juniper, and this is how we are applying the lime sulfur. We're applying it on the dead wood. We've washed the dead wood so that all the algae has come off. So it's just plain, clean dead wood. And now we're applying the lime sulfur. Parts of it have already been done, so you can clearly see the veins. This is one big tree, very large tree. Look at it. Some bonsai. This is a tree belonging to one of our valued customers. And this one is his as well. These are our trees. And this is a yew in the making. And you turn the tree around. See? Have you applied on the other side? So this has been applied, but it hasn't turned fully white. It will turn white. So I'll give it another few hours, maybe like 6 or 8 hours, and then film again to show it complete with everything white. So this is yet another day, and we are continuing to clean up all our junipers. That means clean the Jins and Sharis. So this is work that my colleague Steve has been doing. You can see the tools, all these wire brushes, chisels, and what he's done, he has been spraying the wood. He's got to wash the wood off first, and then after it's washed, it is scrubbed, and all these bits of bark are peeled off. So this is what he has done. Unfortunately, this is not a 10-minute job. Just to do this tree alone takes a couple of hours. And in case any of you think that this is a tanuki, it certainly isn't. And this tree is very cleverly done. You look at this branch here. This branch has been split from here. See this bit, this branch was attached to this portion. It's been split, wrenched back and made into a branch. So very clever things have been done, but this is certainly not a wraparound. Whenever people see these trees with beautiful driftwood, their first impression is that it is a wraparound. Like this big tree I was showing earlier on, I'm self-videoing by the way, and you look at all this lovely driftwood. This is certainly not a wraparound. This is all genuine stuff, and it's been carved. And if you turn the tree around, if I'm able to do it, you see, no way is this a wraparound. This is all genuine. But when you see it from this side, you see all that driftwood, you think that just the tree's been placed behind it. You can see why it isn't. It is a genuine tree. It's got to be rewired again, but since it's a customer's tree, it depends how much he's prepared to shell out to do all the work. There's a lot of work. There's another week's work to rewire the whole tree. But this is what servicing these trees involve. Very, very massive tree. This tree is every bit 4.5 foot tall, 1.2, maybe 1.4 meters tall. This is one of my own trees, and this one has been tidied up, and these are the smaller ones. When we say smaller, it's not that small. They're about easily 25-30 centimeter tall, and these trees must be at least 15 years old, maybe more, 15 to 20 years old. So these big trees are all in excess of 100 years old. And looking around us, you can see what a lot of material we have. This one has been done. That's another major tree. By the way, this first aid box is not for first aid. It's my own toolbox. This is where I keep my tools. But I think a first aid box is useful because you never know when you cut your finger. It's not often that it happens. This year I've only cut my finger once, which is par for the course. So this one, you can see My colleague Steve hasn't brushed it yet. He's still got to brush it to reveal the pink on it, and we're going to pot this tree up in a new pot. So we're in the process of putting lime sulfur on most of our junipers, so we're going through them one by one. You can see how we've washed them. We've washed the old algae off the white driftwood. That's the first bit, and then we remove some of the bark just to reinforce what we do, and then the lime sulfur is put, and then there's another big one there. If you can have a look, that one has been washed, and we're now ready to apply the lime sulfur. So I will now show you how it's going to be done. So we apply it neat with a wet paintbrush. This is a 3/4 inch brush. You can use a small painting brush as well. And it's just applied on the wood. For the first 6 to 12 hours, the liquid stays yellow, and then after that, it suddenly turns white. As I said in some earlier videos, many people try to make lime sulfur with their own concocted formulas, slaked lime and all that, but it's never the same. This lime sulfur is the proper lime sulfur, which has been used a lot, I would say, since the post-war years, right up to the mid-1980s, when it was used for spraying fruit trees. And I remember there was a brand called Murphy's lime sulfur. You could buy it in little 1 liter can. So that's how it's applied, and I will show you when it dries out. Meanwhile, I'll go to some other trees again to reinforce the learning. See, this one has got bits of shari. We applied that. We have to probably remove off some of these which accidentally fell on the live wood. So yeah, that rubs off here. So this is how all these are being done. So this video is all about putting lime sulfur on driftwood, Jins and Sharis. I will do a separate talk on Jins and Sharis with a little demo, because I did one 2 weeks ago for 50 Indian bonsai societies on a Zoom meeting, but I will do this as a YouTube video, how to make Jins and Sharis on both small and large trees. So there's going to be one more shot after all these have been lime sulfured. We can show you the finished product, but already they're looking quite good. Let me show you the end result of all the cleaning of the Sharis and Jins that we've done over the last 2 or 3 weeks. This is a very large juniper that belongs to our customer, and this is the detail of some of the shari, that means the driftwood in the trunk. This is not a tanuki, in case anyone thinks it's a false tree. It isn't by any means. And I haven't rewired the tree. I just want to leave it free like this, because this customer doesn't like trees wired. So I'm just going to let it grow natural. It looks very clean and tidy, so this is quite okay. Now the other tree that he owns is this great big monster. This is every bit, I would say, 4.5 to 5 foot tall. And this again is a genuine tree on its own trunk. It's not a tanuki, but look at all that beautiful driftwood. This was a specimen I imported from Japan in 2005, and he bought it about maybe 10 years ago. And again, I've taken all the wires off. It took me almost 2 months to de-wire the tree. You can see some of the wire marks. I've taken every single wire off, and I'm just going to leave it like that. This is the back. We have a lot of trees with Jins and Sharis. So let me move on to another one. We've been doing these Jins and Sharis because we were on television, the BBC One channel, for one of their programs, and that program will be aired in February, I think, January or February. So we took the opportunity of cleaning up all these trees of ours. So they look smart and neat. And as I said, usually with pines, because the bark is so stunning and craggy and old, it seems wrong somehow to do Jins and Sharis on pines. So I don't often do anything to the pines. This is another tree that we have cleaned up, and we put it in a temporary pot. I'm going to repot that again in the spring, but I put it in that pot mainly to do the television program. So it's got some beautiful natural Jins here, and the Shari has been cleaned up. So that's that one. And this is a very favorite tree of mine. This was wired 2 years ago, and it was loaned to a display at the Chelsea Flower Show of 2019. An award-winning garden by one of the famous designers. They borrowed this tree just to display on their stand. As a contrast, these are Japanese larches. These are trees that we don't do Jins and Sharis. So all around the nursery you will find lots of junipers that have Jins and Sharis. I must show you 2 more trees that have got beautiful Jins and Sharis. In fact, I can show you more. We have such a lot of examples. Now, talking of pines, now this particular Scots pine is a massive one, beautiful literati style. There are some natural Jins on it, so that doesn't look out of place. It's a very subtle Jin, but it fits the design of that tree. Now let me just move on to a couple more specimens. There is this famous Sabina juniper, which is in this large Japanese crescent pot. This is a favorite tree of mine. It is one of the most stunning sculpture type trees that I have, and it's potted in this because I couldn't reduce the roots to fit a pot, so it has to be sat in this sloping fashion because this is the correct angle for the tree. This is another Chinese juniper that I've had for years and years. I think it is an Itoigawa, and again, it's not a tanuki. It's a genuine tree on its own trunk and bark. No tanuki about that one. And there are just another couple. This is an Itoigawa here. I haven't cleaned the Jins and Sharis on this one. I like a lot of the trees looking natural. I don't like to make them too artificial. And that's in a very nice sculptural pot. This is a Sabina juniper. I haven't cleaned the bark, and I haven't lime sulfured the driftwood because I like it looking natural. And you can see why I like it looking natural. Sometimes if a tree is too white, it looks very artificial. This is natural driftwood that I found. We do some flower arranging, and we use this for flower arranging. And now this is a mighty Scots pine, yes, and it's got a hint of Jins there. It doesn't look odd, so I will leave it there. So if Jins are very subtle on pines, they look fine. Now this is an Itoigawa that we've cleaned up, and again very subtle Jins on that one. That's a beautiful tree that we have. That's a Itoigawa again, and the shari on that tree has been cleaned up. So there you go. If I were to look around more, there is more. That Scots pine has got a bit of gin there, and that looks natural, because if I were to remove it, you could remove it, but that gin doesn't look out of place, so I'll leave it there. It's not overdone, so it looks very natural. So again, with Jins and Sharis, they need to look natural. If they don't look natural, then there is no point. So on that note, I will end this video, little video about Jins and Sharis. So I hope you've enjoyed this.